But what they're going to do at QE3 is once they sent the money over to these banks that have this garbage in return, that money is going to be used to buy midterm notes, an average of 7.5 year notes. And that will help drive down interest rates on those notes like the U.S. 10-year, which is currently selling around 2.35 on the yield side. It'll bring it back down so that the 30-year fixed-rate mortgage will be 3.5%. I think that's what they're shooting for. But they're also going to say to the banks, look, you go into the market and gamble so that you can drive it up and use leverage to do so. And that is the stock market. What the stock market has just discounted is what you saw go on in Europe, and I'll get back to that in a minute, and what the insiders in Wall Street know what's going on behind the scenes, because that injection of capital from the Fed into the banks will give the banks lots of money to go out and gamble with. And they know that they in Wall Street know that that'll make the market go higher. And so that's why you've had the rally on the Dow for 10,500 up to 12,000 approximately. Now, in Europe, what's going to happen is that they're going to find that, this is unworkable. And all of a sudden, the people in Greece say, I don't care how much money you want to give the government. We're not going to play your stupid game. And they're going to continue to demonstrate, which means the revenues can't come in. They can't pay off the interest on the bonds or the loans. And it's going to deteriorate even further until finally, 3 to 6 months from now, there's a good chance that Greece will go under anyway. Now, the question is contagion. Will the others go under? Ireland's asking right now for a change in loans they would like to get from the European Central Bank at very low interest rates so they can handle them. Now, Portugal wanted to do the same thing. Now that there's been a 50% haircut on this debt and all this money is being given to Greece, if I was in Ireland or Portugal, I would say, hey, wait a minute. I mean, are some animals more equal than others? Or are some countries more equal than others? We want the same deal. And if they're not offered the same deal, they're going to default anyway. So the problems are manifold and manifest. They are not going away.
Well, let's back up here, and then we've got to go to calls, Bob, because people have been holding on to Dr. Jones and others there. Why do we see the dollar dropping while the stock market goes up? And I have the report here from Reuters that it's record dumping of U.S. bonds right now.
Well, they're under the impression that what's going on in Europe is going to work, and they are sadly mistaken. It is not going to work, and so the dollar probably will bounce around 74 or 75 in the USDX and then move right back up again as the euro comes under pressure again, because people are starting to say, well, maybe this isn't going to work. And so it's kind of a back and forth. But you don't look at currencies. You look at gold and silver. That's where the action is, because you don't want to be in any currencies except what you have to use every day.
Well, I agree with you. And briefly, what do we see happening with gold right now?
It's going higher. It's taking a little respite today, which is fine. Some of the indicators, like the shares, are telling us we're looking for higher prices next week, and it'll fight its way back up to 1923.70, and it'll break it before the end of the year. Probably go to 2,000, 2,200. And then by the end of February, we may see a run at 2,500 and 3,000. It's all there. I mean, who would want to be in currencies with all of the terrible things that are going on?
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the calls here. Appreciate folks holding. Dr. Jones in Canada, welcome and thanks for holding.
All right, thanks so much, Alex Jones. No relation, of course, just for the new listeners. I've been turned on to you since about 2004. I'm a professor. I have a degree in political science as well as a law degree. I'm teaching criminology now in Canada. I just want to let you know and let your listeners know a few things I've been doing and working on. I talk to my kids a lot about propaganda. Edward Bernays, show them that they're being lied to and constantly distracted when it comes to crime. I have a textbook that says, let's look at white-collar crime and let's look at fraud and this, that, and the other. Nothing about the banking scandal. Nothing about the World Trade Organization. Nothing about Codex Alimentarius. Nothing about vaccines killing people. Nothing about institutional problems. The textbook we're using has one mention of Osama bin Laden, nothing on George Bush, nothing on the CIA creating Al-Qaeda, promoting terrorism around the world. Again, you mentioned just a minute ago in Bosnia, I used to live in Bosnia, taught law in Bosnia, about that man out there in front of the U.S. Embassy. Bosnia, again, another place, Yugoslavia destroyed by the United States and the banks in Germany, also Italy wanted to break them up. That's not mentioned in textbooks. And I know you're a good critic, I would say a legitimate critic of professors and school systems and all this. And I guess I would say I'm out there in the wilderness. I'm one. Of course, I have been. Well,
no, that's my point, is that you go to school, and I would imagine you're probably the minority there, and there's always a few professors that are intelligent and have understanding you can learn something from, but most of them, it's just regurgitating. And again, that's how some knowledge is almost more dangerous than none, because then you just have street smarts. Instead, they make these maps of the mind, which that's a great news piece we should actually do to show that, because I know I've seen the textbooks, that's true. Nothing about how at the higher level, how it works and how the fraud takes place. But Bob Chapman can tell you with all of his finance degrees, and I've talked to a lot of high-level economists, famous ones, they'll tell you how stuff really works at the higher level. All they teach is retail stuff. There's no discussion how economies really work. I mean, even bank heads of major, cities who have 20, 30 branches under them don't know this stuff because it's not taught. And that's why this is so scary. Most people are specialized. Even if they're extremely intelligent, have 170 IQ, their whole area is focused on one thing. Like, I'm a biology person that studies tapeworms or whatever. I've been studying them for 40 years and written 9 books on them. And they can tell you everything about the metabolic system and the sexual habits and the variants of the 3,000 species of everything. But they don't have general knowledge. Incredible point. Stay there, but I want to get Bob's take on this. We'll go back to you. Bob, he makes a great point. I mean, really, that's why people are so dumbed down who even have degrees, because they're not looking at the real structure at a certain level. It's like having a 100-story building, and you only look at the first 30 stories, Bob.
And that's true. And that's always been the way. I never had a higher degree, but I can tell you this, that the gentleman is certainly correct about what they leave out. And I was perennially having arguments in college with professors, and sometimes the same ones over again. It's a wonder they didn't throw me out, about things that weren't taught, or them taking totally different tacks from one year to the next. It was like a circus. But what I had to do was, I lived in New York for a couple of years, and I went to the New York Public Library, which was an absolute phenomenal library. And I read everything on business and finance and securities and mutual funds and all the way back to the turn of the previous century. And so I taught myself about that, because I didn't learn that in university. And I thought I went to a very good school. But they're all the same. They only can teach what's in the textbook that they've chosen.
All right, Dr. Jones, we'll get a comment from you on the other side since you've been holding so long. Then we'll get to Randy, then James, Otter, Patrick. Of course, I'll do the customary 5 minutes overdrive to get those last few. And then I'll be back tonight, 7 o'clock, InfoWars Nightly News. 7 o'clock, PrisonPlanet.tv. They're announcing all over the country, not just Tennessee, Homeland Security TSA run checkpoints to, quote, keep kids safe, because when kids were never safe before we had federal goons running warrantless checkpoints. I thought warrantless checkpoints are what's dangerous. I mean, if your country's got them, it's kind of like having a brain tumor or something. It's not good in any book in history, but, well, they say it's good, so it is. DHS announces Halloween checkpoints in Tennessee to keep children safe. SDS founder coaches Ann Arbor, Occupy Wall Street. Obama to the world, do as we say, not as we do. clueless, want Hillary to run. It goes over all that. Get your freak-on girl TSA screener fired. That's just some of the news that we've got up at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com, and I will be back this Sunday, 4 to 6 p.m. live, either on your local station or on Infowars.com. Do 5 extra minutes to get to a few more of these calls, but finishing up with Dr. Jones. Doc, did you have a counter comment to what Bob Chapman was saying before we let you go?
Well, if I can just finish up and say, Alex, you, Gary Knoll, Joyce Riley, you saved my child. Okay, my child is not vaccinated. My older son was vaccinated. He is not damaged, thank God. I spaced it out, but I did not vaccinate my baby. She's 5 years old. She had the measles. She's had chickenpox. She is not damaged from vaccines. Last thing is, again, I saw kids in Bosnia, major amounts of autism. They had public service announcements about autism. I asked my students, ask your grandparents, whoever had autism, whoever was brain damaged, they had none 2-3 generations ago. And lastly, of course, people need to know they have to advocate for drug legalization. We have to take, again, another way to take the corruption out of the system. Again, Bosnia, perfect example with the Kosovo army, heroin shipped in by the United States to promote wars. I was in Mexico, a nightmare of corruption from drugs. In Canada, they're kind of debating over whether to legalize marijuana. We have to push drug legalization as another...
No, it's going to bring our society down. Hey, great to hear from you. You ought to do YouTube videos or do a blog radio show, because you really are a well-spoken fella. Good to hear from you. You're absolutely right. Let's jam another call here for Bob Chapman, see if you got any questions or comments for him. Let's talk to Randy in South Carolina. He'll be our tail gunner on the main broadcast. Go ahead.
Hello, Alex. Thank you for having me on. And I just wanted to say I'm really proud of both of you. You're tremendous patriots.
Well, thank you, brother. We try. But do you have any questions or comments?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, I'll get to it. You said that those that forget history are condemned to repeat it. And you know, I have a couple of historical events that I wanted to run over, and perhaps that will...
sure, hit them. Hit them.
Okay, okay. The first one is Larry Summers at the second Bretton Woods. He was quoted, or I took a section out of the video, where he was saying that the situation with Greece and Italy and Spain and Ireland is similar to a hostage. And he said, what would the nation do if their child was taken hostage? And that is exactly the same thing as Danegeld, where, you know, the Vikings raided England and the other islands and held them for hostage. And the more they paid, the more they did it. And
no, that's the way it works. And the globalists, every time they implode somebody and get more money, they always demand more. Bob Chapman, comment on that.
It's absolutely right. You can't bargain with them. You cannot engage with them. You know, it's either kill or be killed. And that's just the way it is.
Well,
and that's what's happening in these countries in Europe. And I don't see that they have a way out of that. And they found out everything they've done hasn't worked because it was all unnatural. And I think they're really starting to understand.
No, they are. Stay there, Bob. We'll see you Sunday for everybody else, 4 to 6.